If you'll bear with me, this video is going to be presented a little bit backwards. And that's because I'm going to be giving you a little peek behind the scenes regarding how I approach writing the background music for my videos. Sometimes I'm starting with a theme or genre I want to play around with, in particular one that I don't have experience writing, but a lot of the time I'm starting with either an instrument I built or a random collection of noisemakers, and the goal is to just create something vaguely usable. And the nice thing about writing music that doesn't matter is that it's a really low-pressure way to experiment. No one has ever made a single comment about it, and unless it's spectacularly complimentary, I hope to keep it that way. So, we're going to jump into the middle of the tuning portion of the process. This is the electric tenor guitar that I made last year, and I just completed a couple small fixes to make it a little more playable than before. And after testing out a few different tunings, in between being repeatedly interrupted by my cat,
Are you gonna help?
I decided the best approach to creating music with this instrument was to simply play around and cross my fingers. And hey, if nothing works, I can always try again later. But I figure it makes sense to get something down while I already have the instrument out and I'm recording video. After that, I normally go about editing the entire video, leaving the rest of the music for the very end of the process. At this point, it's probably really late at night. I'm exhausted because I've been editing for days, and I just really want to get this thing done. So I give myself about an hour and just put down whatever I can as fast as I can. But first, we got to put down a little mood lighting. Do you really? Well, no, this is sort of a set. It's a visual medium, and I think I look great in dim lighting. Very, very dark. Okay, thanks for that. We all got the joke. I think we all got the joke. Hey, what are you doing? Let's move this show along. Who are you? I'm the editor. Also the director, I guess. Aren't we? You're the narrator. But I thought I was the composer. I'm in front of the keyboard here. I've got fancy jacket on. Honey, just follow your script. But I don't want to follow a script. I'm an artist. Okay, sure thing. What's your next line? In this case, I'm just going to pull up the recording that I made earlier of me just messing around with the guitar and just see if there's anything interesting that I can use from that. If it is an instrument that I invented or it's just sort of a thing that makes noise, I might be inclined to just record that into little snippets. But if I don't really know what I'm doing, it just is easier for me just to kind of noodle around and then kind of work backwards from there. Kind of depends on what I come up with. You can tell what I'm doing is that I'm just sort of picking out little bits of pieces of things that can repeat semi-easily and putting some effects on it. The things that are a little imprecise because I was just noodling around, you can put effects on it so it kind of hides the crimes, so to speak. I also normally at this point in the editing process know how much music I need for my timeline, or, you know, give or take. In this particular case, we're doing all this kind of simultaneously, so I actually don't know, I haven't edited the timeline yet in terms of video, so I'm kind of guesstimating. And the other thing that I'm doing is that because I'm going to have little pieces of things, I'm going to at some point export that so I can layer that in the timeline so I don't have to be super precise, and so I don't have to compose specifically to the video like you would if you were a film composer. This is background music, guys. And it's for my own video, I'm not selling it, so you can be a little messier. On a surface level, I'm simply layering and manipulating sounds that I think sound good together. A lot of that is instinctual, but I can't imagine that's particularly helpful information for anyone to hear. If you've come to writing music via songwriting, or maybe being in a band, or even if you're new to music in general, I think it's tempting to primarily think about the instrumentation instead of the function of those instruments. That is, it's easy to think about how you need to write for drums or guitars, for instance, instead of considering how those parts work within the music you're writing. Do you actually need a drum kit, or do you need a part that delivers rhythm or repetition or timekeeping? You can, technically, use any sound or any instrument to serve that function. The vast majority of music, of any genre, is going to contain layers of sound that provide movement, motion, and drive. How you get there and at what speed is up to you. And optimally, those layers work to support one another instead of constantly competing for attention, unless you're specifically aiming for that and know what kind of result to expect. Let's pretend you're really married to the idea of writing some sort of noise-based music. You could write several lines of similar sounds, in similar ranges, similar rhythms, that fight each other for attention. But if you want to improve upon that, ask yourself how you're going to create structure and timing and musical lines using the sounds that you have available to you. Because you can still do that with dissonance and noise, more or less, in a not too dissimilar fashion to writing for traditional instruments. But that's not totally what I'm doing here, is it? I sometimes am playing with genre expectations, which occasionally dictates specific rhythms or instruments or other identifiers. But for my particular brand of background music, I'm aiming to hit a few guidelines, which are shorter phrases, less variation, more repetition, and less melodic distinction. And this is because, 1, the little crevices that I'm inserting music into, in between voiceovers, are typically not long enough to allow for lengthy phrases. And number 2, I don't want the music to be competing with the video, which is essentially another layer that can serve to aid in supporting the sound, and vice versa. It ends up not being music meant to be ignored, but instead, music intended for your divided attention. For brief moments, it'll take the lead or call attention to itself, but then it'll recede back enough to not detract from the visuals. And for those of us who have a tendency to always think that more is more, it's important to be cognizant of how much you're piling on and rein in the voices, at least a little bit, if you feel like it. Just tell your editor to fix it in post. They love that. All this now is going to get imported into Premiere, where I do my video editing, and I'm going to do the final arrangement right in the timeline. Is it going to be perfect? No. Does it matter? Not really. And so, here we are back at the beginning of the story, the part where I disassemble my guitar, accidentally break a screw off inside the head, which required me to attach the tuners at an angle, replace a non-working fret, and then reassemble it all back together again. Like every other build I've made, or the music that I write, or the stories that I tell myself, it's not perfect, but I brought it into existence, so I might as well do something with it. But, hi, I have a question. I'm still not sure I get the point you're trying to make. You spend this whole time talking about background music, make no mention of Satie's furniture music, or heck, even John Cage, and you barely touch upon film music. And on a specific level, there's no mention of chords, or progressions, or modes, or exactly how does a bass line support the melody, or offer any kind of roadmap to follow. Why bother with any of this if you think no one is going to listen? Isn't this why production music exists? Has no one told you about the 80-20 rule? We live, we make things, we disappear into the ether. Don't worry about it. Embrace the inconsequential. So, you're saying that you didn't procrastinate putting this video together because you were anxious, overthought the entire process, and couldn't make a decision about which direction it should go? Me? No. And neither would you. Like I said, don't worry about it. Man, who wrote this thing? Someone's getting fired. Excuse me? Don't worry about it. Okay. Whatever. And then composer Kristen receives the first Pulitzer Prize. The first Grammy Award for Best YouTube Video from a less than 1,000 subscriber channel that ambiguously touches on a musically related topic. Perfect.